Now that we've got the push buttons fitted, the next couple of things are the two little LEDs, the red and the green, which need to be aligned to fit through two little holes in the case, these two holes. Okay, so we'll fit the LEDs. The green one is LED 1 and the long lead is the positive anode, so that will be going through that way, and the red goes next to it there. Again, long lead is positive, and the trial fit to see that these will line up now perfectly. I'm going to try and solder one leg of each of these while it's in the box and they're lined up with the holes then. So I'll just do one leg of each one. Okay. Yeah, in fact they're a perfect fit. When they're flush, they fit perfectly anyway. But it's just as well to make sure. Do the other side. Okay. And I'll just snip off the excess legs, and that's the two LEDs fitted. The next thing to fit is the speed controller, which is VR1. This has been modified. The side's been cut off and the pins have been bent 180 degrees because it's got to go, it fits underneath the board and protrudes through the front, so that can be fitted on there. Solder the pins, and there's also pads to solder the body to reinforce the so it doesn't get pushed out. So that's the next thing to do. Careful not to touch and melt the LEDs. On the other side. Okay. That's set to halfway for now. Okay, that's that done. The next component is VR2, a little preset pot which goes on the back and has to fit in there and those holes, and then bent 90 degrees to fit just there. I think it might be a good idea to stick that down with a bit of insulation tape so to prevent it moving while I solder it. Secure that to the PCB so it doesn't move, and then we can solder the three connections on the other side. Like so. Take the tape off. The VR2 is fitted. Okay, then we're just going to adjust the VR2 to the mid position for now. The next thing to fit is the little header for the piezo sounder, and you need to remove the middle pin. Just push them out with a pair of pliers and save for later use maybe. Doesn't matter which way around this goes, it needs to go into the back of the PCB and be soldered on the opposite side. So again, I will use a bit of insulation tape just to hold that in place, and then solder from the front side. And we have a little plug that fits into there. For the sounder. Then we need to solder 2 wires of the sounder onto this plug of the plug and socket. Supplied with the kit is a little piece of insulation sleeving. So you need to cut this in half and slide each half over the 2 wires of the piezo sounder. Then we need to solder these wires to the socket. I think what I will do is remove the middle pin from the plug also, like so. And there's less chance of shorting out. So then we just tin the pins. And you need to try and only put as much solder on as absolutely necessary, so you can slide the insulation sleeving over the joints. So, what you can see, there's one. There's the other one. And slide the heat shrink sleeving over the joints. And apply a little bit of heat soldering the side of the iron just to seal it in place. Okay. The next part is the 15-way header plug and socket, which the display will plug into. This needs to be fitted to the front of the PCB, soldered on the back. And these are really tiny pins, so we need to be careful. Again, I shall secure that with a bit of insulation tape. Then we'll solder it. And start from this end. Just solder 1 pin. And check that it's 90 degrees to the board. Okay, that's 90 degrees. So we can secure the rest of the pins. Okay, so we can check that with a magnifying glass to make sure there are no shorts on there. Okay, so now we've got the socket soldered in place. We need to, from the header, we need to pull the pins out. If we inserted the plug in there, it would be too deep, get in the way. So I need to pull the pins out and push them into the header, into the socket rather, one by one. Carefully so they don't go flying across the room. there's one. Like so. And then we've got the display PCB, which needs to be soldered onto those pins. The excess pins will need to be cut off to allow it to fit in the case. So the next thing is to solder those on. So before we put the display, we need to fit this little piece of foam just underneath the socket there. And then fit the display on the pins, like so. Then we need to trim these pins so they don't foul the case. So what I'm going to do is cut them before I solder them. So I'll cut the first one there. I'll have an idea of the height to cut the rest, and also less chance of damaging the display as I'm cutting them. So I'll cut these one at a time. So to fit the display, what I've done is cut the pins beforehand so they don't protrude above the display height, and I'm going to have to fit them individually. So what I'll do is solder the first pin in place, like so, and then fit the rest of the pins one at a time, because they're quite fiddly and they soon flit off and never to be seen again, so you've got to be really careful with this part of the operation. It's quite fiddly, this, so it would be a bit time consuming to get the thing in place. So I'm going to solder the opposite end now to hold the display down to the right level, and then insert the rest of the pins one by one. So now we've got the pins all in place, we need to solder them up. And there we have the almost completed motherboard with the little display there. It's got a protective film off, which I'll peel off before we finish, just to demonstrate that it fits in there perfectly. Now comes the RJ22 socket. It's fitted to the little daughter board, so I need to solder that onto there now. The next stage is to fit this little diode on this outer hole with the anode or band end facing away from the PCB. So I just moved about halfway, fold that over, a little bit of solder on there. Spin that straight again. Okay, clip the excess off. Okay, and then what we have to do next is just to put 3 links in a wire, just solder this end, and then that will fit onto the motherboard in a little while. Okay, so I've made 3, just bent over the ends of 3 little link wires just to prevent them falling through the holes. The last one. Next thing is to attach the little daughter board to the motherboard using these screws, and I've got to get these little spacers in between the screw and the 2 boards. So the back one, and attach 2 nylon washers. Not the easiest things to get hold of. Okay, that completes, attaches the daughter board to the motherboard. I'll just have to snip those wires off. Okay, and that should fit snugly into the case. Like so, and the socket aligns perfectly. Okay, just inserting the last few of the push buttons onto the push button switches. Okay, make sure they all click OK. Then we need to fix this inside the case again. Wonderful fit. And then we need to bolt in, fasten the PCB to the case. So we've got 4 countersunk screws bolts for this. Just pass those through there. Put a nylon washer on each one and a nut. That's it. Just tighten them up. No need to overdo it. Okay. I just tagged a little bit of wire on here to aid pulling the PCB in and out of the case. That can be taken off. So all that's left to do now, take off that protective film first, attach the label, and we have a finished article. Okay, so we have the finished article, and we'll turn on the power, and there we go. Works. We have a working module.